A stunning saga of an alternate reality unfolds as the past of Conan from Earth 79213 closely mirrors that of his Earth 616 counterpart up until his fateful journey to the city of Acapitania. What if Conan the Barbarian walked the Earth today? What if Volume 1, Issue 13, The Watcher narrates? The Nemedian Chronicles speak of the black man, steely-eyed Crimean, who descended from the northern lands 12,000 years ago, carving a path of destruction on his way to a throne. None could match him in single combat, for he was the mightiest warrior of his age. We witness Conan the Barbarian tearing through the waves of soldiers with unparalleled ferocity, all while defending a damsel in distress, showcasing his legendary strength and heroism. Conan was born in Cimmeria, a northern kingdom of barbarians among the Snowhawk tribe. All of this chronicle adventure takes place in the Hyborian Age. At the age of 15, Conan fought in the Battle of Venarium. After this, Conan went on several adventures as chronicled in the Nemedian Chronicles and eventually came to be king of Aquilonia, one of the most powerful kingdoms of the Hyborian Age. Conan followed a rough code of honor throughout his life. Although willing to engage in the acts of thievery and mercenary work, he remained loyal to those he generally saw as comrades. Conan was unrepentant womanizer for much of his life, but he remained somewhat respectful of women. He was at times shocked by how people of his era sold their daughters treated like property. His code prohibited his slaying a female, not even those who deserved it, but he did slay Lady Antiva Brosas of the house of Aquim after she had his partner and mate Jalia killed. His Cimmerian Hill Code also forbade him from allowing the rape or murder of a woman. Conan was fiercely proud man, preferring death to surrender. As a young man, Conan would kill a man for insulting him. Although by middle age he had mellowed somewhat to the point that he allowed the poet Rinaldo to vilify him in ballad, particularly out of a belief that poets were more powerful than monarchs, and particularly out of fondness for the mad poet's art. The Watcher continues. Between the sinking of Atlantis and the dawn of recorded history lies the fabled Hyborian Age. Yet those who struggle against the untamed forces of this era might be more apt to call it the Age of Conan. The Watcher says those who survived the fierce onslaught of its fiery wrath were few indeed. But what if the indomitable Crimean had lived and fought in another era, such as your own? A ludicrous question perhaps, yet one worthy of an answer. What if Conan the Barbarian walked the earth today? The Watcher ponders. Such a thing nearly happened once, though, in your own time. Neither he nor any other could know, for such are the paradoxes of the road not taken, the opportunity missed, the tragedy perhaps avoided. I alone know how Conan came within a hair's breadth of entering the world of a modern man, a world of nuclear nightmares and fashionable neurosis. I know, for I am the Watcher. He continues, understand this, the tale did not truly happen as you perceive reality, unless it occurred in the twilight universe reserved for the realm of what if or might have been. Yet it wasn't quite so in the end. All living creatures, even I, dwell in the same world. The Watcher reflects. Conan of Cimmeria came closer than most mortals to fully realizing how gossamer thin the line is that separates space and time. It was some time after Conan had become the war chief of the fierce desert dwelling Zuagris. With their aid, he had rescued the queen of Kaiharan from the clutches of the sorceress sister. Unannounced and unknown, he rode to the gates to trade city called Akpitena. These events were depicted in issues 5 and 7 of The Savage Sword of Conan. Conan was on a spying mission, yet as ever he took time to taste the wiles of a beautiful woman, but the trail had been long and hard and he grew careless. Thus when he drank deep moments later, he was not standing at all, but being carried inside a thick carpet through Agabetania, deserted streets. There Conan would be drugged by Alhambra and taken to her master. Conan awoke inside the tiered ziggurat, his senses sharpening as he realized his predicament. The trickster woman stood before before him a sly smile on her lips and said, "Welcome to the inner recesses of the citadel. You travel so fine to find the war chieftain of Zugiris." Conan, unfazed, demanded, "Then why do you not turn me over to the Akbatantians?" The Babylonian wizard, Shamash Shum Yukin, entered the room, a man of great mystique hailing from the future. He spoke of the incredible wonders of time he had glimpsed. The wizard spoke vividly of cities made of shimmering glass, of flying galleys soaring through the heavens, and of chariots that moved without the need of horses or oxen. Conan, unable to grasp the full scope of these marvels, formed his own mental images from the wizard's descriptions. What we recognize today as big cities, airplanes, and cars. Conan, intrigued, said, "Then somehow you and this citadel of yours are from another age. But how?" The wizard replied ominously, "That you shall learn soon and regret that you did. Come, my friend, and witness for yourself." The wizard led them to the well at the center of time and declared, "Even if I do not understand all of its secrets, it has served me well. It was this well that allowed me to flee Babylon when it fell to the hated Ashurbanipal. When I lower men, beasts, or objects into it, I often draw forth other valuable things from times long past or yet to come as part of an exchange. Now you and the girl, Alhambra, shall be my next items of trade." Shamash intended to force both Conan and Alhambra into the well, attempting to send them to another era as part of his dark bargain. The girl who had been aiding the wizard was to be sacrificed alongside Conan the Barbarian to obtain other valuable things from across time. Conan managed to break free of the ropes, but before he could escape, one of the wizard's minions swung an axe, striking him and knocking him unconscious. When Conan awoke, he found himself bound once more, this time atop of the well at the center of time. As the wizard pulled the lever, Conan and the girl began their descent into the depth of the well. The thick fumes rising from the star pool filled Conan's mind with vivid visions. In the mirror of his thoughts, he witnessed the sinking of Atlantis long millennium ago during what Nemedon scholars called the Great Catalysm. The image then shifted forward to a land overrun with serpents, reminiscent of Stygia, yet somehow Conan understood it belonged to his future. Next, the visions leaped backward, revealing massive hairy beasts like those he had once encountered in the Lost Valley of Corinthia, battling savage men as fierce as any he had ever faced. Conan was seeing glimpses of both the past and the future. The next scene Conan's witness seemed to stretch even further back into the abyss of time, long before anything human walked upon the green breast of the world. The staggering images overwhelmed his barbarian mind, though not as much as the visions of vast continents rising from the surging oceans, thrusting themselves upward repeatedly. It was as if such catastrophes had occurred countless times in the Earth's past and would have happened again in the future. Conan catches a glimpse of the wizard's past as he struggles against the ropes binding him. Breaking free, Conan hesitates for a moment, considering whether he should free Alhambra. However, bound by his own code of honor, Conan decides to untie her ropes as well. Conan tells the girl to hold on as he lifts and throws her out of the well, freeing her. This is the pivotal moment where the story diverges. In Earth 616, Conan also leaps out of the well successfully. However, on Earth 79213, the rope is weakened and aged, causing Conan to lose his grip and fall through the black well of stars, plunging into various futures. He would be transported to Manhattan on July 13, 1977. His arrival would cause the New York City blackout of 1977 and gathering storm that would be destabilize the electrical grid on the island. The Watcher explains that Conan had fallen onto an island known as Manhattan. To the south, the residents remained mostly unaffected by the strange elemental occurrence, with electrical lights and television sets doing little more than flickering briefly. However, in a location called Greenwich Village, beneath the towering arc at one end of Washington Square Park, a different kind of history is already unfolding. Conan of Cimmeria is suddenly and silently thrust into the hot and humid night of the late 20th century. Wandering through this strange world, Conan's presence does not go unnoticed, though it is not necessarily taken seriously. With no policeman in sight, Conan, unable to fully understand the language around him, decides to move forward cautiously before any onlookers decide to attack him. As Conan gazes at a few cars, one passerby remarks, "Are you sure that isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger?" To which their friend responds, "Looks more like Sly Stallone to me." Quickly, Conan stalks his way into an almost deserted side street. Still baffled by this strange world, he wishes to remain inconspicuous until he can get his bearings. However, his plan does not work for long as a punk group emerges and takes notice of him. Conan, still unable to understand their words, grows increasingly irritated by their posturing and mocking attitudes as they question and berate him. Finally, Conan adopts a stance of his own, abruptly drawing his sword. The punk band scatters in terror. Though he now sees the costume group was harmless, he is still thankful the wizard left him his sword. In a world of madmen, one must always go armed. As Conan recalls, there are more basic urges, even in prudent caution. He is hungry, and this merchant seems to have so much food that he'll hardly miss a raw steak or two. Conan, finally, his code as a thief, has no problem stealing food. Just then, an old lady, offended by Conan's lack of clothing, hits him from behind with her bag. She mistakes him for Sylvester Stallone and is offended by his scant attire. Conan, thinking a witch has struck him, is unsure if she's truly a witch or just an old lady. In his frustration, Conan resorts to picking her up and tossing her in a garbage can. This act prompts the old lady to scream for help, shouting, "Police, I've been assaulted." Now convinced she's just an old lady and not a witch, Conan finds himself in trouble. Soon the police arrive, checking on the old lady in the trash can, which leads to a chase by the authorities. The police finally catch up to Conan, calling him a nature boy, and order him to put his hands on his head. Conan, feeling that these are city guard, believes he has dealt with them before. He draws his sword and tells them to stay back, calling them dogs. The precautionary measures of drawing his sword might be forgivable in an enlightened eyes, though not necessarily in the eyes of New York City's finest. A man wielding his sword in New York City will hardly be looked upon kindly. However, we know Conan as someone different. What is interesting is that nearby, Peter Parker and Mary Jane are walking. Mary Jane asks him, "Peter, those boys in blue are chasing somebody. Do you want to help?" Peter Parker responds, "It's none of our business, Mary Jane. I better take you home." He thinks to himself, if it's anything really serious, I can come back later as Spider-Man. He wants to make sure Mary Jane gets home safely. However, the special powers of the young human arachnoid will not be needed. The police officers understand that Conan doesn't speak English, decide not to fire. Instead, they opt to send him warning shots. As bullets have unfortunately a universal language to Conan, the thunderous fire followed by the splattering of brick means magic. Conan flees and begins climbing the wall, believing the best place for his sword-wielding Cimmerian self is the highest point around. As Conan drops from building to building using the fire escapes to reach the ground, he thinks this is the lost world, which Shamash, Shun, Yukin, the wizard, spoke. A city with shimmering glass, flying galleys, the greystone of filth. Suddenly, however, he drops lightly to the street some distance from the puzzle. Conan, he thinks to himself in confusion at the lights and sounds of a horseless chariot. He sees no driver, so he wonders if it's perhaps an armored monster. It is, in fact, a taxi cab in New York City. Conan takes out his sword and starts attacking what he thinks is a metal monster, a demon from the past. He uses his sword to hit it over and over again, thinking it is an enemy. Suddenly, a girl jumps out of the car, begging Conan to stop hitting her car, explaining that she's just working and doing her job. Its owner, a woman named Danette, would realize there is something different about Conan. Initially, she thinks he's from the UN, a diplomat with immunity, and nicknames him Christopher. She feels lucky that she isn't killed by the sword, but she hears the cops coming. She stuffs Conan into the cab, maybe because she likes him, maybe because she has an expired license. She directs the cops another way. As she does, she's still trying to figure out who Conan is. She contemplates whether he's a beast from another planet or just a nutty religious person. At 8:56 p.m., a second lightning bolt knocks out more cables in Westchester County. She hides him from the police and takes him to her house. Conan only now begins to sense that he must have traveled traveled either forward or backward in time, somehow as a result of falling into the wizard's bottomless well. Yet if this is Earth's future, it seems Conan to play havoc with the theories of progress, as he has heard exposed by the scholars of Numidia. As Danette talks to him about New York, about bringing him back to her place, Conan says in his own language, "You talk quite a lot, don't you, girl? You seem friendly, but if you turn out to be some evil sorcerers casting a spell on me." As he continues to ride through New York City, a third power line is struck by lightning. A spokesman for Con Edison calls it an act of God. Danette lives above a furniture store. As the utility company is overloaded, more lightning just struck Westchester and the generators fall. Danette offers Conan a beer as the fourth thunder strike hits a vital power line on this hot summer evening, causing all the remaining power flowing into the metropolitan area from the north to be lost. A famous blackout. As Danette keeps talking to Conan about weights and cartoon Looney Tunes, she now thinks Conan is from Bulgaria. She feels Conan does not understand her, and probably the first time in years, at least in front of another person, this attractive woman cries. The giant Cimmerian does comprehend, at least in his own way. Conan says, "You're alone here in this mad, monstrous world with no man to protect you, but you've been kind to me. I'll protect you if you are truly what you say." Then Conan grabs her, kisses her, and embraces her. By the time is now 9:34 p.m. and all the lights go out. Conan moves away from the girl, looking out the window to see the entire city in blackness with just the glowing lights of the car, which Conan calls metal dragons. Then Netta is starting to figure out that Conan is not from this world. She says, "Wherever you're from, they don't have things like this. I guess it's funny. I know you're just talking to myself, but I can't help remembering the blackout of 65. I was just 13 then, and Pop was still alive. It wasn't a bad time, really. Not too lonely child anyway. The city was a wonderful place, if just for a night, with everybody helping everybody. It's the last time I recall that happening. That night, I just curled up with a candle and a comic book." Danette feels comfortable with Conan and gives him eyes. Conan has been accused, sometimes justly, of being insensitive, yet now he feels the loneliness, the reaching out in the girl's tremulous voice. There is a time for only one more exchange of words that seem somehow unnecessary. Conan tells her, "I am Conan." And Danette says, "My name is Danette." The rest, as a wise man once said, is silence. They would have a romantic interlude despite the language barrier between the two. At first, mortals refused to accept the fact that the total failure of electrical power had occurred for a second time in 12 years. Broadway actors performed under the wavering beams of flashlights held by confused stagehands. Waitresses served patrons by candlelight, and some of the most romantic of the later did not mind. Even the mayor joked at first about the people not paying their electricity bills before he began searching for a handy scapegoat. In short, most city dwellers expected a repetition of the relatively peaceful events of the blackout a dozen years ago. Conan is awakened by loud crashing sounds, prompting Danette to question if it's morning and why the furniture store is opening so early. Curious, Conan looks out from the fire escape to investigate. With the blackout in full effect, looters seize the opportunity to rob the furniture store. While Conan is no stranger to looting and thievery, tonight he finds himself on the other side. For all he knows, the store below could belong to the red-haired Danette, and the howling looting mob could easily escape into a deadly one. Feeling a sense of duty, Conan leaps into action. Conan enters the furniture store with his sword drawn, commanding the looters, "Get out now, or taste good Hyperion steel." The looters, however, ignore him, showing no fear. Danette, standing nearby, pleads, "Don't kill them, Conan." Somehow Conan understands her plea. While he refrains from slaying the looters, he decides he will not be gentle in driving them out. As one of the looters attempts to stab Conan, the barbarian's unmatched strength becomes evident. Conan swiftly breaks the looter's wrist and without hesitation picks him up and hurls him into the others. The display of raw power should discourage the foolhardy scavengers, but in every mob there is always one who goes too far. One such man grabs Conan's sword and in a bizarre display declares himself Darth Vader, clearly not of sound mind. His bravado is short-lived as Conan lands a devastating right-hand punch that will likely leave the man waking up in a hospital. Without missing a beat, Conan lifts a heavy sofa above his head and warns the others to leave. Though his words are lost on them, his intent is unmistakable. Conan hurls the sofa at the looters, scattering them in disarray. Without hesitation, he grabs other looters and begins throwing them out the window. Desperate, the remaining looters attempt to punch Conan, but their efforts are futile. These degenerates of society lack the strength to overpower the mighty Cimmerian. Chaos ensues, and looters are sent flying in every direction, and Conan delivers a few extra blows for good measure. Realizing the chances are slim, the looters flee out the door, deciding it's wiser to find easier targets than to battle Conan. Now outside, Conan notices the store next door, spotting what he calls a metal dragon. He lifts a car with astonishing strength and overturns it, smashing it into the building. This dramatic display clears the entire block of both looters and curious onlookers. Danette, observing the scene, says, "Thank you, Conan, for not using your sword or killing anyone." All through the night and even broad daylight, the anarchist terror continues. Looters attack stores, steal merchandise, and destroy property, while New York's finest work tirelessly to keep the city safe. Fires are started by looters, spreading chaos across the city. The darkness has brought out the worst in many people, though it has also revealed the best in others who try to help where they can. However, for Conan, these events hold no concern. Deciding to help Conan get back, Danette would browse through her encyclopedia set to see if anything looked familiar to him. Seeing an upside-down photograph of the Guggenheimer Art Museum, Conan would note its similarities to Shamas's citadel and ask to be taken there. Within minutes, Danette takes Conan in her taxi, chauffeuring him to the museum, thinking maybe someone there will have answers for what you're looking for. Yet on 5th Avenue in Manhattan, inside that very art house, a group of professional criminals is robbing the Guggenheimer, taking advantage of the blackout. By coincidence, as Conan and Danette arrive and step inside to see if anyone might help them, they notice the door is ajar. Both sense that something unusual is happening. Danette and Conan find a dead security guard lying on the floor. Danette quickly deduces that the perpetrators are not mere looters but professional robbers. Realizing the danger, she warns Conan that they need be careful. While Danette and Conan whisper to each other, they make their way to the lower levels. Conan, unimpressed by the modern art, dismisses it as unworthy of stealing. As they walk down the hall, they are suddenly confronted by the robbers, who shine a flashlight on them. Conan immediately senses that a battle is imminent. Conan's instincts prove correct, as the robbers don't ask any questions. One of them starts shooting, grazing Conan on the shoulder. Conan quickly reacts, leaping at a robber named Butch, who jumps on top of him. Butch tries to slam Conan's head to the floor, but Conan fights back. Meanwhile, another robber, known as the Professor, grabs Danette and holds a gun to her. Danette retaliates by back-kicking him with her shin, injuring him, but the robber shoots her in the shoulder. Enraged, Conan grabs the shooter by the neck, slams him against the wall, and throws him high into the air, sending him crashing to the ground in the middle of the Guggenheim Museum. There are still 3 other robbers who hear the commotion and rush in with their guns. Conan, furious that Danette has been shot, and takes his sword and thrusts it through one of the robbers' stomach. The remaining 2 robbers open fire, but Conan swiftly evades all the bullets with his quick reflexes. To evade the bullets, Conan leaps off a floor and grabs onto the wall. When one of the robbers moves to look, Conan grabs him with his feet. No plea for mercy can stop what happens next. Conan sees the man and hurls him over 7 stories, sending him crashing into the middle of the Guggenheim Museum. With only 2 robbers remaining, they realize they are outmatched even with their guns. Conan then picks up a statue, ignoring the robbers' desperate pleas, and hurls that heavy piece of modern sculpture, something no ordinary man could lift, smashing it onto the robber's head and crushing it like an eggshell. The first robber to fall, somehow still alive, grabs his gun and fires at Conan, grazing his shoulder. Enraged, Conan seizes the man by the neck with one hand and begins squeezing the life out of him. The robber's body trembles and spasms under Conan's grip before Conan finally releases him, dropping him lifeless to the floor. A man as rough as Conan wastes no time pondering the right or wrong of his actions. They try to kill him and the girl, and in his eyes, they all deserve to die. Though Danette was not fatally shot, Conan is still concerned about her, and she in turn worries for him. Despite the chaos, Conan feels grateful that she is still alive. As Conan hears distant thunder, he somehow feels drawn to the rooftop, sensing that it is where he will find the answer to the mystery. Yet Conan's moral code won't allow him to leave Danette in this condition. Seeing his inner torment, moment, Danette speaks with resolve, saying, "This isn't your world. You've got to find your way back to your own." Danette then gives Conan her beret as a keepsake, and in return, Conan offers his armband. They embrace for one last moment before the sound of police charging into the Guggenheim Museum forces their farewell. Danette does one final thing for Conan, seeing a police officer ready to shoot him in the back as he heads towards the roof. She bumps into the officer, diverting his aim and ensuring Conan isn't harmed. Another officer notices Danette's injuries and realizes her boyfriend is the man headed to the roof. Meanwhile, Conan, climbing higher, isn't thinking of armies or even the red-haired woman who saved his life. Instead, he feels something in the air, a sensation he hasn't experienced since the moment hours when he plunged into the wizard's well and entered this strange eon. Danette explains to the police that Conan is a hero, pointing out that the robbers were known criminals. However, the officer insists that her boyfriend must come down from the roof. Meanwhile, on the rooftop of the museum, Conan feels an irresistible surge within him. He holds his bloody sword high as defying the very elements swirling around him. With a roar of thunder, a bolt of lightning strikes Conan as he stands resolutely. In an instant, he vanishes, leaving no trace. The police officer, stunned, questioned Danette about the mysterious man. She simply says, "Just a guy. He wasn't from around here," while clutching Conan's armband in her hand. Conan, however, has been transported back to Akabina, to a world both familiar and alien compared to the one he left. He reappears amid a brilliant burst of flame, standing outside the wizard's palace, ready to face whatever lies ahead. Why Conan has materialized outside the wizard's palace rather than within its walls is a matter best left to scholarly debate. Conan is a swordsman, not a sorcerer, and such mysteries do not trouble him for long. Soon he has found his mount and is riding hard toward the city gate and the trackless desert beyond. In his barbarian mind, he may dismiss all he has experienced as an eerie dream, but deep in his soul, he knows better. As he rides, he notices the best of Danette, a momentum of his strange journey, now in his possession. Holding onto it briefly, he places it securely before riding off into the desert, knowing that his path was inevitably lead him back to confront the wizard once more. For now, though, he gallops forward, carrying the memory of another world atop his horse. While the chronicles of Conan of Earth 79213 remain unrecorded, it's possible that they mirror those of his Earth 616 counterpart following this adventure. These events will be continued in What If Volume 1, Issue 43, What If Conan the Barbarian were stranded in the 20th century. It is a divergence from the end of this issue. But next, What If Volume 1, Issue 13, What If Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos had fought World War II in outer space?